The initial steps. Are you prepping or are you guessing? Because you might be half-stepping. Alright, black people, this is Slick, and on behalf of the Black Prepper Network team, I thank you for joining me here today. This may be a long video, but I hope you'll watch it all the way through, because I would like to share with you my realistic approach to prepping as it relates to specific areas in the country absent of fantasy prepping. Now, there's more than one way to skin a cat, to be clear, but you can have the wrong tools for the wrong cat. This video will provide critical thinking tools you'll need before purchasing any preps you've seen on YouTube or the internet. Most of us in the past have depended on YouTube and the internet for information on how to prep and what to prep for. But as we gain more knowledge about prepping realities, we start to sell some of our previously purchased preps back on eBay. I started to revise my preps after working with a client of mine, Dr. Cynthia Hansen, who's employed by the Department of Health and Human Services, Office of Preparedness and Emergency Operations here in Washington, D.C. Dr. Hansen is a doctor of psychology, and because of her expertise in the area of preparedness, she's often listed as a notable attendee at policy conferences such as the one we had here in D.C. 2 years ago. The subject of that conference was Preparing to Save Lives and Recover After a Nuclear Detonation, Implications for Foreign Policy. So, the average Joe or YouTube prepper don't get invites to stuff like that. So I want everyone to know where I get my information from. It's from people in the know. So one example of Dr. Hansen's duties was to organize workers to assess suicides among residents, police officers, and relief workers days after Hurricane Katrina. FEMA are the first responders, and Department of Health and Human Services is the first receivers, so they treat the injured. So because of her expertise, I asked what information she would recommend to help me as a prepper. First thing she recommended was a book on the survivability of disasters called The Unthinkable by Amanda Ripley. Funny thing about this, after reading the book and seeing Amanda on YouTube, I realized I've been seeing her on the job for over a year now, and I never knew who she was. Now she's a friend of mine, and whenever I see her, we talk about prepping a little bit. Dr. Hansen also recommended the government-funded Community Emergency Response Team course here in Washington, D.C., which is a week long. Taking the CERT course is a must for black people. CERT brings together local and federal agencies under one program. Because of this program, I've developed social relationships with my local fire and police department, as well as with FEMA and the Department of Homeland Security. Within 1 month after taking the course, I refined my preps based on Washington, D.C. and our border states. At first, my mindset was to prep like other popular YouTube preppers, buying cast iron crock pots and a whole lot of wilderness stuff I eventually sold back on eBay. Black people, we must understand that we can't prep for everything we see someone else prepping for just because they're popular on YouTube. We need to spend our time and money wisely, which is why I'm making this video on the initial steps to prepping. Before we start, I want viewers to know I have 3 autographed copies of Amanda Ripley's book, The Unthinkable, and we're giving away 1 copy to the 200 subscriber, 1 copy to She Chef for being the first to contribute a video to the Black Prepper Network, and 1 for our up-and-coming video contest, showing your preps and the realistic reasons why your preps is best suited for your specific area. Anyone can enter, not just black people. In the near future, I will be interviewing Amanda Ripley here in Washington, D.C. for the Black Prepper Network, with the focus on what happened to unprepared black people during Hurricane Katrina. So if you're patient with us, you'll be surprised and pleased with the experts, those in the know, that we'll be interviewing here in Washington, D.C. So let's start, and I'll be focusing on preps for hazards first in this video and threats in a part 2 video. First, you have safety hazard. A safety hazard can be a blocked fire exit, a condemned building, a huge tree that fell on the road after a thunderstorm, potholes in the street, or a down power line. Second, you have a security hazard. Security hazard can be a door at your home that doesn't lock properly, a window at your home that is structurally weak, a security camera at your home that's out of focus, a security guard on a job that leaves his post without requesting coverage, or an employee on a job that leaves classified documents on their desk while they're in the restroom. Third, you have political and social hazards. A political or social hazard can be countries such as Israel, Syria, Mexico, where there's civil war or serious political problems. Or in America, in states and towns that practice racism, such as Harrison, Arkansas, home of the KKK's national headquarters, also known as Klantown, USA, or towns like Vidor, Texas. You have economic hazards. Number 4. An economic hazard can be a place like Detroit, Chicago, or New Orleans where there is no war declaration, but the economy is so bad that travel warnings are issued by local government and law enforcement about the high probability of you being robbed or assaulted if you visit that city. Now, I believe the 5th hazard is the greatest of all hazards, and we should focus on them in our planning first. The 5th hazard is natural hazards. A natural hazard can be an earthquake, hurricane, tornado, flood, land or mudslide, wildfire, heat wave, drought, hailstorm, thunderstorm, snowstorm, seasonal and non-seasonal viruses or infectious diseases such as West Nile and the flu. So, I gave you 5 limited examples of hazards. I'm going to focus on the natural hazards because they're absolutely out of our control. But in no way, shape, or form am I saying that a natural hazard would happen on a specific date or with a certain level of intensity in your area. I cannot see the future, but the factual probabilities are here for you to be concerned. These critical tools I'll show you, which provide historical data for the frequency of past disasters, will help you mitigate the outcome. I believe another Great Depression, along with natural hazards, would make it almost impossible for anyone to survive if these natural hazards take you out first. You'll be forced to relocate to places you're not familiar with, which is a bad situation and should hit the fan. I'll be making a video about this later on the realities and fantasies of bugging out and why white people in these areas aren't going to be taking too much of this natural disaster stuff anymore. And shit hit the fan, they will have to relocate to your cities, black people. Don't let these fantasy preppers tell you it's better for you to bug out to the country. Don't fall for that. These same fantasy preppers will be the ones looking to relocate and take over your unaffected areas. History absolutely proves this, but like I said, I'm going to make a separate video about this later, and it's going to be the bomb. So let's take a look at the tools I use to acquire historical data for hazard prepping in my specific area. First, we have the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Second, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Third, the U.S. Geological Survey. Fourth, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. And fifth, Center for Disease Control. Alright guys, so we're going to go to FEMA's website, and it's the simplest tool to work with. It gives you specific critical information on specific areas of the country regarding natural hazards. So from the main page, we're going to click on Disaster Survival Assistance. Okay. From here, we're going to click on Disaster Declarations. Okay. Now on this page, you have some options, but we're going to keep it general, which gives you an overview of all the hazards for all the states by clicking on state and tribal government. Okay, so on this page, the states are listed in alphabetical order. The numbers of the major declarations, the numbers of the emergency declarations, and the numbers of fire management assistance, and the total. Okay, so let's click on DC to see what's probable, if any, I should prep for here. Okay, as you can see, in Washington, D.C., we have 13 major declarations, all right, 6 emergency ones, for a total of 19. Okay, so it appears from looking here okay, that rain and snowstorms are what I should be prepping for the most, not the 3 hurricanes, okay, because we don't feel the full effect of the hurricanes because we're about 100 miles away from the Atlantic Ocean. All right, I shouldn't be prepping for an earthquake. That we're not even on a fault line, so that 12-second tremor that we had originated from Virginia, 118 miles away. Okay, well, buildings fell over there, but we shouldn't have to deal with that. So if we go back to the state tribal page, okay, and on this page, if you check and scroll down, you will see that DC has the least disaster declarations of all, with the exception of places like Marshall Islands or the American Samoa, which aren't on this continent. I don't even consider them, a state or anything. But, as you can see, as far as natural hazards are concerned, DC is the safest on the continent. Okay, we only have 19 compared to, everybody else. It's the safest for natural hazards, which makes you think about shit hit the fan plus natural disasters. And what places will the government designate as green zones? Now, it won't be areas where reserves will be expended the most, okay? Places like Florida, New Orleans, California, Texas, all these places where you get Oklahoma, where you get all these natural disasters, they're not going to use the reserves on those parts of the country, okay? Now, if you think there won't be green zones in this country, like it was in Iraq, then, that's nothing more than wishful thinking, black people, okay? Shit hit the fan, there will be no help. Promise you, there won't be any help. I mean, look, DC is going to be a green zone, okay? If you haven't figured that out by now, DC will be a green zone, okay? If you think people like Ted Cruz and Lizzie Graham are going to be running back to Texas or South Carolina doing shit hit the fan, you need to wake up, okay? DC was built for this type of stuff. All right. Now, do you think it was a mistake or pure luck that, the nation's capital is here in Washington, D.C., in this section of the country, and not Delaware, Philadelphia, or New York? All right. So, look, I'll be making a video about green zones in the future, okay, which will be based on facts. All right. So, check out the site. You can know, California. You can find out, what you need to prep for in California. Okay. Tsunami waves, earthquakes, wildfires, flooding, and you can narrow this thing down because California gets pretty much everything, right? Except for snowstorms. Okay, but still, it's a lot, and you can narrow it down by the frequency, of past disasters, and that's what I do. All right, let's go back, and let's go to Florida. All right, so from 1953, okay, Florida has had major disaster declarations. All right, but you can see the patterns are hurricanes and floods. All right, so if you live in the places on the coast, really close. I mean, even New York right now, and after what happened with Sandy, you guys need inflatable boats and paddles and life jackets. That should be a part of your preps, no matter what. Okay. All right. So, this is the site. One thing. Let's go to response and recovery. Okay. So we have the Community Emergency Response Team. That's CERT. Okay. Now we're going to click on CERT in action so we can see how CERT is being used. No, thank you. Okay. So in June of 2011, you can see CERT members have been responding to apartment fires, search and rescue missions. A CERT team member saves an elderly woman from a fire. CERT in Oregon activated to prepare for a tsunami. They cleared beaches during the tsunami threat in Monterey, California. And southern Marin County, they did a search and rescue effort. So this is the history of CERT in action. And I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more in a separate video. All right, so this is the FEMA site, and you guys should check it out. So let's get back to the video. So using FEMA's historical data, you can see I won't be wasting my time prepping for wildfires that probably won't manifest in DC. Anything can happen, but we can't prep for everything and anything. That's not intelligent. So black people, if you're new to prepping, using these tools will save you time and money, so you may prep for the probable, not the imaginable. Again, the stuff that you see preppers showcasing on YouTube may not be for you. And don't focus on guns and ammo, because the natural hazards will probably take you out before the human does. We see these hazards every year, black people. And to make a historical point, Joplin, Missouri in 2011 had a tornado that killed above 160 people. That same year, they only had 2 homicides. In fact, from 2003 to 2011, Joplin only had 21 homicides. So, if you live in Joplin, the probability of you being taken out by a tornado during shit hit the fan is higher than being taken out by a human threat. Now let me say something to my white brothers and sisters that live in annual disaster areas. Black folk that live in the cities should be the least of your worries. But I know it doesn't sell or play into the doomsday fantasy prepper narratives you see on YouTube. For the most part, white people, you're being programmed by YouTubers and fantasy novels like 1 Second After that blacks and poor city folk are coming to take your stuff. Think about that for a minute. The natural hazards that kill you and destroy your homes annually is a very good reason for you to reach out now to city folks. That means minorities. Because when there's no government funding, and there will not be any, because it will be shit hit the fan, you'll be coming to our unaffected locales. The question you should be asking each other is, will minorities let you in? And why should we? After all the garbage that's been propagated by your popular YouTube preppers about us, why should we? You probably haven't fantasized about this one yet, but it's going to happen. And that's something you need to think about, white people. You really need to think about it. So black people, I hope this video was worth your time. I hope you'll use the tools before purchasing any preps you've seen on the internet or YouTube. My next video, I'll discuss my hazards here in Washington, D.C. and my preps for it, and show you some great things about the CERT program. So, thank you for watching, and we look forward to your questions and comments here at the Black Prepper Network. So once again, you know how I feel about my videos. This was a grand slam home run video. Some of you may disagree, but...
Oh! Right there! Nobody gonna tell me that wasn't no base hit.